Whose number is this, Marcus? Tell me the truth!
It's nobody. Why are you going through my phone?
I'm not asking again. Whose number is this? Explain this to me. Why are you silent?
That silence lasted 4 seconds, but it told me everything 2 years of forgiveness never could. I forgave him once. I should have left the first time. Those are the words I ended up saying to him at 3:15 in the morning, standing in a bedroom that no longer felt like mine. But to understand how I got there, you have to go back to a backyard barbecue, a promise about a house with a porch, and the first lie I ever told myself to make his lie easier to carry. My name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is that I was 31 years old, married 4 years, mother to a 2-year-old boy named Noah, and about to learn that some mistakes only ask your forgiveness once before they come back for more. Before we go back to the beginning, if you're new here, this channel is where real stories about marriage, betrayal, and rebuilding get told without sugarcoating. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Now, back to the story. Marcus and I met at a backyard barbecue the summer I turned 24. He had this way of listening, really listening, that made you feel like the only person in a yard full of 50 people. While everyone else was talking over each other about work and traffic and who was dating who, Marcus asked me what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years, and then he actually waited for the answer. He was working construction management then, saving for his contractor's license, and he talked about our future like it was already furnished. A brick house, a wraparound porch, kids who wouldn't grow up the way either of us did, bouncing between relatives, watching our mothers stretch $4 into a week of dinners, learning to read the moods of grown-ups before we could read chapter books. I remember thinking, this man has already decided who he wants to be. I just have to decide if I want to be there when he becomes it. We dated for a year before he proposed on a Tuesday. Of all days, no big production, just the two of us on my apartment balcony, with cheap wine and a ring he'd been carrying around in his jacket pocket for 3 weeks, too nervous to ask. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. We built something real. Not perfect. No family I've ever known has had the luxury of perfect. Not with the bills that came due before the paychecks did. Not with his mother's health scares. Not with my father's silence that lasted 12 years before he finally called to say he was proud of me. But real. Marcus stood beside me at my grandmother's funeral and held our family together when my own siblings couldn't look at each other. He drove 45 minutes each way to work so we could stay near my mother, who was raising my little brother alone. Our wedding was small. 40 guests, a backyard again, this time his aunt's, string lights and folding chairs, and my mother crying before I even walked out. Marcus wore his grandfather's cufflinks. I wore my mother's veil. We danced to a song neither of us really liked because it was playing when he first told me he loved me, and somehow that made it ours. I tell you all of this not to defend him. I tell you this because you need to understand what I thought I was protecting when I found out what I found out. 2 years into the marriage, I noticed Marcus started staying later at work. Not dramatically, just enough that dinner got cold twice a week instead of never. I told myself it was the promotion, the new project, the pressure of proving himself to a company that had passed him over once already. It was a woman named Ashley, a co-worker, someone he sat 2 desks away from, someone whose name had come up before in passing. Ashley thinks the new manager's an idiot. Ashley brought donuts today. Small, harmless mentions that I never thought twice about, because why would I? 6 months of texts that started as jokes about a supervisor and ended as something I won't repeat in full, because some of it still sits in my chest like a stone I swallowed whole. I found them by accident, if there is such a thing as accident when it comes to a phone left unlocked on the kitchen counter while he showered. I confronted him standing in that same kitchen, Noah asleep upstairs in his crib, the phone shaking in my hand so hard I almost dropped it twice before I found the courage to speak. "What is this?" I said. Not a question. A demand dressed up as one. He didn't lie. I'll give him that. He sat down at the table, put his head in his hands, and said, "I don't even know why. I don't have an answer that's going to make sense to you. And here is the part I need you to sit with, because this is where the story really begins, not in his betrayal, but in my response to it. I forgave him, not because I'm weak, not because I didn't know my worth. I forgave him because I come from women who forgave. My grandmother forgave a man who disappeared for whole seasons and came back like nothing happened. My mother forgave debts and disrespect and a marriage that limped along on fumes until it finally died quietly instead of loudly. I was raised to believe that women hold families together, that we absorb the cracks so the children don't fall through them, that leaving is a last resort reserved for the unforgivable. I thought infidelity was survivable. I thought love was supposed to be inconvenient sometimes. I thought if I loved him hard enough, stayed steady enough, tried hard enough, I could love the wandering out of him. We went to counseling. 6 months of Tuesday evenings in a small office with a woman named Dr. Patterson, who had kind eyes and a box of tissues that never seemed to run empty. Marcus cried in that office more than I'd seen him cry in 4 years of marriage. He talked about feeling invisible, about growing up watching his own father cheat and swearing he'd never become that man, and then becoming him anyway, and hating himself for it. He said all the right words. "I'll never make you feel that small again. I'll never make you question your worth again." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. There's a version of this story where I tell you I was naive, that I should have known better, that the signs were flashing red the whole time. Maybe that's true, but I also think there's something people don't talk about enough. The exhaustion of rebuilding trust after betrayal is its own kind of labor. I wasn't naive. I was tired, and tired people believe the version of events that lets them rest. For 2 years, it was good. Really good. We had our daughter, Chloe, and Marcus was different. Softer, more present. The kind of father who learned to braid hair from YouTube tutorials at midnight so I could sleep in on Saturdays. He got his contractor's license, finally, after 2 failed attempts, and cried again, this time from pride instead of shame. We started talking about the brick house again, the one with the porch, driving through neighborhoods on Sunday afternoons just to look, just to imagine. My mother, who had never fully trusted him after the first betrayal, started softening too. She'd call and ask about him by name instead of just asking, "How's things at home?" She started saving him a plate at Sunday dinner without being asked. I want you to remember this part of the story, because it matters for what comes next. It wasn't performance, or if it was the most convincing performance I've ever witnessed, because I lived inside it every day for 2 years and felt nothing but safe. I felt, for the first time since the affair, like the ground under my feet was solid again. We took a trip to the coast for our 5th anniversary, just the 2 of us, Marcus's mother watching the kids for 4 days. We walked on the beach at sunset, and he told me he didn't deserve a second chance, but he was grateful every single day that I'd given him one anyway. I remember thinking, this is what healing looks like. This is what it means to survive something together, instead of being destroyed by it. There were small rituals that made the healing feel real instead of theoretical. Sunday mornings became sacred. Pancakes, cartoons, Marcus doing the crossword out loud badly on purpose to make Noah laugh. He started leaving notes in my lunch bag again, something he used to do when we were dating, and had stopped somewhere in the exhaustion of early parenthood. I kept every single one in a shoebox in my closet, and some mornings I'd take them out just to remind myself that this steadiness, this softness, was possible for us. Even my siblings noticed. My brother, who had never fully warmed to Marcus, started calling him for advice about his own relationship. "He's actually good at this now," he told me once, half joking, half amazed. I laughed along with him. I believed it too. That's what makes betrayal the second time so much more dangerous than the first. The first time, you're blindsided. The second time, you've let your guard all the way down. You've told yourself the story has a happy ending. You've stopped checking. You've stopped noticing. You've built your whole sense of safety on a foundation you never actually tested. You just decided to trust it, the same way you decide to trust a bridge you've crossed 100 times without ever looking underneath it. It started with something so small I almost laughed when I noticed it. Marcus began taking his phone into the bathroom. Not every time, just sometimes, and when he'd come out, he'd set it face down on the nightstand instead of leaving it face up like he'd done for 2 years. I told myself I was being paranoid. That trauma from the first betrayal was making me see ghosts in ordinary shadows. I almost didn't say anything, because I didn't want to become the kind of wife who couldn't heal, who kept her husband on permanent trial for a mistake he'd already paid for. I told myself that was its own kind of unfairness, punishing him forever for something he'd worked so hard to fix. But something kept nagging at me. A late-night project meeting that ran until 11 p.m., longer than any meeting I'd ever heard of. A new gym membership he never seemed to use the gym for. I checked, quietly, driving past it twice on my lunch break, and never seeing his truck in the lot. A softness in his voice on the phone one evening that I heard through the bathroom door, a tone I hadn't heard him use with anyone but me in years, low and warm and careful, in a way that men are not careful when they're talking to their mothers or their co-workers. There was a Tuesday when he came home smelling like a cologne he didn't own. I asked him about it and he laughed it off. Said someone at the gym must have sprayed something in the locker room. I let it go. I told myself I was tired, that I was imagining things, that 2 years of good behavior deserved more trust than this. I want to be honest with you about something. I almost didn't look, because looking meant I might find something, and finding something meant I'd have to face a truth I wasn't sure I could survive twice. There is a particular kind of fear that comes with almost knowing something, a fear worse, in some ways, than knowing itself, because as long as you don't look, you get to keep living in the version of your life where everything is fine. But I looked. 2:47 a.m. Her name was Jessica. She worked the front desk at the gym Marcus had actually started going to, the same gym where I'd dropped him off twice, where I'd waved at her through the glass and thought nothing of it, where I'd even joked with him once that she seemed sweet. The messages went back 8 months. 8 months of a woman I'd smiled at and made small talk with while waiting in the car. 8 months while I was planning Chloe's 3rd birthday party, ordering balloons and a cake shaped like a unicorn. 8 months while I was defending him to my own mother, telling her he'd truly changed, that people really could become better versions of themselves if you gave them room to. 8 months while I was telling my sister, over coffee, that our marriage finally felt unshakable. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and read every single message, cover to cover, like a book I couldn't put down even though I already knew it would break my heart. There were photos. There were plans for a weekend he'd told me was a work conference. There was a message from 3 weeks earlier where he told her he loved her, the same 3 words he'd whispered to me the night before while we watched a movie on the couch, Chloe asleep between us. And somewhere around message 400, I stopped being sad and started being something else entirely. Clear, cold, awake in a way I hadn't been in years. I thought about my grandmother, forgiving season after season, growing old inside a marriage that never once gave her the version of safety she deserved. I thought about my mother, holding a marriage together with nothing but will, until the will finally ran out, and there was nothing left to hold. And I thought, I am not going to be the 3rd generation of women in my family who mistake endurance for love. I sat there until the bathroom lights started to feel too bright, until my knees ached from the cold porcelain edge of the tub. until I heard him shift in his sleep down the hall, completely unaware that the life he knew was ending while he dreamed through it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I woke him up at 3:15 in the morning, turned on the bedroom light, and set the phone on his chest. "Read it," I said. "All of it. Out loud, if you want. Or just read it. But you're going to look at what you did before you say one word to me." He read it. His face went through every stage: confusion, panic, then something that looked almost like relief, like he'd been waiting to be caught, like carrying the secret had exhausted him more than losing me would. "I can explain," he started. "You explained the first time," I said. "I listened the first time. I forgave the first time. This time, I'm not asking for an explanation. I'm telling you what happens next." He tried anyway. He always did. He said it wasn't like before, that it hadn't gone as far as I thought, that Jessica had pursued him during a hard season when work was slow, and his father had just been diagnosed, and he'd felt invisible in our marriage, unseen, like a man who paid bills and disappeared into the walls of his own house. I let him finish. I owed him that much, if nothing else, so I would never wonder later whether I'd cut him off before he could say the thing that might have changed my mind. But nothing he said changed my mind. Nothing he said even came close. And then I said the sentence that changed the rest of my life. I forgave him once. I should have left the first time. I didn't say it to be cruel. I said it because it was, finally, true, and saying it out loud broke something open in me that had been sealed shut by 2 years of hoping. He reached for my hand, and I let him hold it for exactly 3 seconds before I pulled it away. Not out of anger, out of clarity. There's a difference between the two, and that night I finally understood it. What followed wasn't a movie. It was slow and ugly, and full of the specific pain that comes when a family breaks apart in a small, tight-knit community where everybody knows everybody. His mother called me crying, not to comfort me, but to ask me to think about the children, to think about what a broken home does to a boy without his father in the house every night. My own aunt, a woman who'd been divorced twice, told me marriage isn't supposed to be easy, like ease was ever what I'd asked for. I lost people I thought were mine. Some of his family stopped speaking to me, as if I was the one who'd broken something. A few of my friends quietly took his side, because he was charming and apologetic, and knew how to make his failure sound like a misunderstanding, a slip, a season, a mistake rather than a pattern. One of them actually said to me, "But he's such a good father," as if that had ever been the question. There were nights I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot because I couldn't face going inside and being asked how I was doing by someone who didn't actually want the real answer. There were mornings I got Noah and Chloe dressed for school on autopilot, my hands doing the buttons and the shoelaces while my mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying message 400 over and over like a song stuck on repeat. I went back to Dr. Patterson, alone this time, and told her I felt foolish for having believed the healing was real. She said something I still think about. The healing was real. The relapse was also real. 2 things can both be true, and neither one erases the other. It didn't fix anything, but it gave me language for what I was feeling. The strange grief of mourning, something that had genuinely been good, even while being furious that it hadn't lasted. Noah asked me once, a few weeks after Marcus moved out, why Daddy didn't live with us anymore. I didn't tell him the truth, not the whole truth, not at 4 years old. I told him that sometimes grown-ups love each other, but can't live in the same house anymore, and that it wasn't anything he did, and that both his parents loved him just as much as before. He nodded like he understood, the way kids do when they're really just trying to make the adult in front of them feel better. I cried in the bathroom after he went to bed that night. The same bathroom, though a different one now. A smaller one. In a smaller life I was slowly learning to call mine. But I kept some things too. My mother, finally, without hesitation, said, "Baby, you did the right thing. I wish I'd had the courage to do it the first time." That sentence undid me more than the betrayal itself, because in it, I heard a whole generation of women who'd stayed when staying cost them everything but the marriage certificate. I heard my mother naming, out loud for the first time, a regret she had carried silently for 20 years, and I understood, in that moment, that leaving wasn't just something I was doing for myself. It was something I was doing for her too, and for whoever came after me. I moved out with Noah and Chloe into a 2-bedroom apartment 11 minutes from their school. It was smaller than the house. The walls were thinner, the parking lot was crowded, and some nights I could hear my upstairs neighbor's television through the ceiling. But it was also the first place in 6 years where I fell asleep without checking a phone, without listening for footsteps, without performing peace I didn't feel. Marcus and I share custody now. He's a good father. I never took that from him, and I never will, because my children deserve his love even in the places where I couldn't keep mine. We speak civilly at handoffs. We show up to school events on opposite sides of the gymnasium, and it doesn't destroy either of us anymore. But he is not my husband anymore, and some nights that fact still catches me off guard, like reaching for a stair that isn't there. Here's what I want you to understand. If you're watching this, and you recognize yourself in any part of my story, forgiveness is not the same thing as a second chance. You can forgive someone completely, release the anger, let go of the bitterness, wish them well, and still decide they don't get to stand in your kitchen at 3 a.m. ever again. Forgiveness is something you do for your own soul. Trust is something he has to earn back with his actions, every single day, for as long as it takes. And if he breaks that trust twice, the lesson isn't that you didn't forgive hard enough the first time. The lesson is that some people show you exactly who they are the first time, and it's on us to believe them. I forgave him once. I should have left the first time. I didn't leave the first time because I thought love was supposed to survive anything. Now I know love was never the thing being tested. My worth was. And the second time around, I finally passed. Some days I still wonder what our life would look like if I had walked away after the first betrayal, instead of the second. If I would have saved myself 2 more years. If Chloe would even exist. If I'd have found this same clarity sooner, or never found it at all. I don't have an answer for that, and I've stopped needing one. The only question that matters now is whether I know what I deserve going forward, and for the first time in a long time, I do. I still believe in second chances. I don't regret giving Marcus his. What I regret is not asking myself, back then, what a second chance is actually supposed to look like. Not a return to the exact same trust, unquestioned and unguarded, but something rebuilt slowly, with eyes open the whole time. I gave him my whole heart back without keeping a single piece in reserve, and I think that's the real mistake I made, more than the forgiving itself. Next time, if there is a next time, for me or for anyone listening to this, I'll know better. Healing doesn't mean forgetting how to protect yourself. It never should have. If this story moved you, if you've ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve a second chance, tell me in the comments. And if you're standing where I once stood, in a bathroom, at 3 a.m., holding a phone that just changed your life, I want you to know something. You are allowed to leave the first time.